listeners, to another episode of The Mindful Living with your host, Sana. Now, today in this episode, we are diving into something that's so close to my heart and probably yours too. Now, what do you do when the career you have built no longer fits the life you want to live? How do you know it's time to stop pushing and start pivoting? In fact, I have had the same questions a year back. And our guest today is Shannon Russell. She is a career transition and business coach, an exit strategy expert, and CEO of the Second Act Success Coaching. Now, let me share a bit about Shannon with all of you listeners. After a successful 16-year career as a television producer in New York and LA, Shannon made the bold leap into entrepreneurship. First with a STEM education business, and now helping women leave unfulfilling careers and create joyful, purpose driven lives. She's also the host of the Second Act Success Career podcast and the author of At Your Second Act. Now, today we are talking about recognizing the signs that it is time to move on and how to use your existing skills, which you have imbibed over the years in your career, to start something new and what it really takes to build a fulfilling second act. So, grab a cup of your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's get into this mindful conversation on the mindful living. So, Shannon, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor having you with us.
Oh, thank you, Sana. I'm so excited to be here with you and have this conversation.
Beautiful, beautiful, Shannon. So, um, you know, you spent 16 years as a television producer. It's extremely high pressure, creative, yet exciting. What was that moment like when you realized that this doesn't fit me or maybe serve me anymore?
Yes, it was a specific moment. I had a 3-year-old and I was pregnant, 8 months pregnant with my second little boy. And I was
Mhm.
trying to get home from New York City, running through the Times Square subway station, trying to get my bus to get back to my house in the suburbs to pick up my 3-year-old from daycare. And it was the hustle and bustle and stress of it all. And I realized I just can't do this anymore. It was so much of just working late, missing my oldest son's first birthday, and just having this stress every single day of getting back home and trying to balance being this career producer and a mom that was really stressing me out. And that in that moment really is when I realized that I can check the box on that aspect of my career and celebrate that I accomplished it, but that I needed to figure out something else to do so that I could be a more present mom.
And then that resonates with me so much, especially how you described that particular moment, because after 10 years of corporate career, one day when I was I couldn't feel, I didn't feel like going to work. I was frustrated with that, hustle and bustle when you don't even remember that. Do you eat your breakfast? Do you even have a cup of
Yeah.
tea or coffee? It's like you forget everything. You are just like doing, doing, doing. That's it. You're not being anything. So that resonated with me so much, and I can
Mhm.
understand how it feels.
Yeah. I can understand what you were going through too. It's just that monotony every day of doing the same routine and not enjoying it.
True. And uh, I think a lot of us out there, we feel that nudge, but then our mind or the brain comes into the picture. We second guess it or push through out of fear. There is again that anxiety and fear of the unknown. What after this? Right now, I have a stable income. My entire world is set in a particular way. So, did you have a moment of burnout, or was it more like a whisper that kind of grew louder over time?
Yeah, I think it was more of a whisper. So when I had my first son, we were living in Los Angeles, California, and I just felt like I don't know, I just didn't want to go back to television. It was a whole new experience. I had a little postpartum depression after him, and I was just trying to figure out what life would look like now when I had a very active social life. My husband and I were out like 7 nights a week with our friends, and all of a sudden we have this little boy, and everything just felt misaligned. And then a few years later, we were back on the East Coast in New York City, and I was going through the same motions being pregnant with my second little one, and I just felt like, "I don't wanna do this anymore." I knew a couple of years ago that this wasn't right, and as the stress of the commute from New York City to where I was living, it was about 2 hours each way, it was just too much for me, so I think that was, like, the breaking straw. So it wasn't burnout. I always say I loved my career. It was really the hours and the stress and the pressure that didn't align with, me being present with my kids.
Hmm. Makes sense. It makes absolute sense.
Mhm.
So, when you were making your pivot, Shannon, how did you start to identify your transferable skills? Because, in fact, that's the most important yet kind of a difficult task to do accomplish. So, what advice do you give to someone who's feeling stuck? They don't have any clue how to start, uh, and what to offer in a new space.
I love that question because I think I agree with you. The transferable skills are so important for us to identify that really what we have gathered and learned and accomplished over the years are truly valuable and they will transfer into whatever second act we're choosing. And for me, coming out of the entertainment industry, I didn't think that any of my skills would transfer because I was in such a niche, kind of unique industry. So I didn't know what I could possibly do outside of Hollywood and Los Angeles and New York City. So when I actually started looking inward and looking at everything I had done over my career, and I made a list, I started writing everything down and I said, wow, like I actually have done a lot. And it was skills like writing scripts and hiring a team and doing budgets and working with talent and marketing things, marketing the shows that I was working on. And I started thinking those skills actually will transition into opening a business and
Mm,
building a business because producing is really taking an idea and growing it to become this end result of a TV show on your screen. And building a business is coming up with an idea and building something that serves your customers or clients. So when I started making that simple list and really letting myself realize that I had accomplished a lot, that I was able
mhm,
to kind of see where those could transfer. So I tell my clients to make that list and really look at your skills and your experience and
mhm,
appreciate them because you might think they're something that everyone else can do, but they're really not. They're true to you, and that can help you figure out where you want to move to next.
That's such a good reminder, but just because we have always done one thing doesn't mean we are only good at that thing. And
Right.
totally love how you reframe that for your clients, Shannon. So now, I mentioned about that fear and anxiety when our mind comes into the picture. So let's talk about mindset, Shannon. So so many women, they feel guilty for wanting more or something different, primarily because of the set template out there. uh, we are caregivers, we always feel that guilt or selfish, that why are we always thinking about ourselves, why do we want this when everything is going to change around us. I don't want to have that change for anyone else, for my loved ones or for my family. So how do you help women to get out of that internal resistance or that stuck ingrained template?
Oh, Sana, you just explained it so perfectly. And it's true. It's that guilt. And then of who am I to want to change up the status quo? And so I do have a lot of clients who come to me and feel the guilt. They also feel, well, doesn't everyone hate their job? Should I just suck it up? Or I'll put it off. I'll put a change off until the kids are out of the house or this perfect time in the future. And then I'll work towards what I want. And so I think it's that mindset of realizing that you can make a change that feels better for you, and therefore, you will be a better partner, a better mom, a better daughter and friend because you'll feel better about yourself and you'll be excited to wake up every day and do the work that you love. And so by shifting your mindset into saying, I deserve this and I deserve to even explore it, because sometimes we'll get ideas in our head and we're not sure if that really is a good idea. So, by researching what you're thinking, maybe it's a business or a new career path, research that option and see if it truly aligns with what you want. And you might realize it doesn't, and you can check it off your list. But until you
Mhm.
start doing that research, you won't know. So, allow yourself to at least research, learn a little bit about what your goal is, and then tell yourself that you don't have to cause this chaos in your family. You can actually do it very methodically and strategically by putting little steps in place to get you there. And it can be as simple as looking at your finances to realize how much longer you need to work before you make a pivot, or keeping your priorities in check of, I want to be able to pick my kids up from school every day. Well, then that's your priority. And you're going to look for something to do next that will allow you to have that priority be held. So I think there's ways to do it step by step instead of just yelling, I quit and figuring it out afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. That's such an important point that you highlighted. A mindful approach to start with definitely pays, really, really well in the end. So,
Mhm.
also, you emphasize a lot on creating an exit strategy. And that feels really, really intriguing and empowering. So, what exactly does that process look like? And then, how can someone begin, even if they feel overwhelmed?
Mm. Well, I think the exit strategy just helps you feel a little less overwhelmed and a little more in control. So if you start looking at, okay, maybe you want to start this business or you want to make this pivot. Well,
Mhm.
again, look at the finances and see when you would feel comfortable having enough saved to start this plan in motion. And maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 1 year. But start looking and start making savings happen, and while you're doing that, you can start working on your business or updating your LinkedIn or your resume. You can set up your business, you can create a website or start your social media. You can do all of those little pieces while you're working and while you're still earning a paycheck. And while you do that, you're getting even more excited, hopefully, about what you're moving into. And that
Mhm.
keeps you going. And then the other important piece, I think, is to really look at your current job and look at your team, look at the projects you're working on, because you don't want to burn a bridge. You want to give your team and your managers the right amount of time when you do give your notice. And you want to be respectful and thankful for the opportunity because you never know where your paths will cross down the road. And maybe these coworkers and partners and bosses of yours will be future customers or
Mhm.
clients. Right? So just plan all of it together and kind of make that roadmap
Mhm.
for when you're able to officially feel confident enough to give your notice and start really growing that business and taking off on that next path.
Absolutely. That was once again such a great takeaway. And I also want to ask you, Shannon, especially from a women's perspective. So, um, the second act, or maybe becoming independent, let's say you want to become a solopreneur, freelancer, or anything, which where you are following your passion, sometimes it becomes really very difficult to communicate the same to maybe your family members, maybe your parents, or anyone, uh, because they may come from a different school of thought. So,
Mhm.
how exactly do you advise your clients to navigate through such situations? I mean, how to communicate that mindfully, and then also, uh, I guess in those situations, support from your loved ones is also very much important. So,
Mhm.
what's your opinion on this?
That's an important question. And I think the best place to start is by keeping your goals close to your chest. And what I mean is do that research, get confident about your goal before you tell other people what you're thinking. Because in my experience and talking with other women and clients, is that sometimes you get so excited about what you want to move towards that you tell people, and their first instinct is, oh, but you've worked so hard for this. Why would you give that up to try something new? Right. And so I honestly, people might disagree with me, but I say keep it to your chest, keep it quiet until you're 100% sure that this is what you want to move into. And then when you start telling people, your confidence will exude from you. It will show to other people in your conversations. And then if someone is a naysayer and is talking to you with maybe the fear that they have because they wouldn't make a change like this, you can say, well, thank you so much, but I know I'm doing the right thing and I appreciate you. This way, you're confident and you're not going to be swayed by other people's fear. And I had that happen when I left television. My husband's a television producer. All of my friends were in the industry and they were very concerned. And my family as well, because I was leaving this well paying job to start a business. And I just was very confident and I did the work, I turned inward, I had the conversations with myself, and really had that mindset shift where I was self-aware and confident, where whatever they were saying wasn't going to sway me. So I want your listeners to get to that place where they do the research, they do the inner work, and then they're extra confident when they do tell other people.
That is so, so uplifting. Really.
I hope
Wow.
so. It's scary. It's definitely scary to, tell the world that you're making this change, but I really do think it comes down to your mindset and the inner confidence that will lead you to success.
Absolutely. Because, as you mentioned that do your research, get the facts, get the data, get the statistics, have your plan. I think that it gives you that inner confidence which exudes when you share that plan with your loved one. I mean, they'll also get that feeling from you when you share it. So, before we wrap up, Shannon, I think it's a bit of a personal question, but in your work and in your own life, what has surprised you most about the second act? I mean, what unexpected joy or challenge did you discover?
Ooh, I just discovered that, wow, we can do so much more than we give ourselves credit for. And for me, when I launched that first business, it was definitely not easy. There were struggles, highs and lows. But when I reached success, or my version of it, I felt so proud that I said, "Oh, I wanna start another business." And now I wanna start a podcast. I wanna write a book, which I have a book coming out in May. So it's all these things that you realize you can do so much more, and that we're given this one life to live. So why not, what I say, check all the boxes and do all of the things, all these different adventures, because it keeps lighting you up and you won't have those regrets at the end of the day. Hopefully.
Beautiful. I love that. It's like we keep evolving, and that's not failure. That's
Yes.
growth. And that's something
Yes.
I really want my listeners to walk away with today. So, Shannon, if our listeners would like to connect with you and check out your upcoming book and also listen to your podcast, what's the best way to do that?
They can go to startyoursecondact.com. That is the page for my book, and there's a free resource they can download, and then from there, they can get to my website and my podcast and all of that. That's startyoursecondact.com.
Wow, that is such an empowering name. And Shannon, thank you so so much for sharing your story, sharing the journey, and sharing the insights. I think, your story, your work are such beautiful reminders that we can start over. We can have our second innings, and our experiences are valuable, and it's never too late to pivot towards joy. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sana, and I love the work you're doing on your podcast to bring, this idea of mindful living to others. So thank you for having me.
Lovely, lovely. And to all of our listeners, if you are feeling that tug in your gut, that quiet voice that says, "This isn't it," I hope today's conversation gives you permission to explore what is. And also to explore further, just refer to the show notes to connect with Shannon and check out her book, her new book, and listen to her podcast. And as always, thank you for choosing mindfulness, choosing growth, and choosing yourself. Until next time, stay well and keep living mindfully. This is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.